Welcome back, Mando.
Greetings, Bucketheads. Mayvar Tagar. Welcome to our 383rd Trying to Find the Trigon episode of MandoVision. I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad you're here. Reach out to us on the socials. Mando_Vision on X and Insta. MandoVision at Blue Sky. And of course, you can email me, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back. And of course, we are here to continue our vintage rewatch of Star Wars Droids. But first, a week of Star Wars happened. Things came up, things have occurred, and we have a little bit to talk about before we dive into our third episode of the one and only season of Star Wars Droids. And I guess we'll talk about the big thing first, because anything that happens on the screen is big, right? That's what we pay attention to. Star Wars in front of our eyeballs in moving form. And so we will talk about the trailer that dropped this past week for The Ninth Jedi, the anime style animated series coming to Disney Plus on August 5th. And I think we all are in agreement that in Volume 1 of Star Wars Visions, The Ninth Jedi was one of the better entries. I wasn't crazy about the entry they had in Volume 3. I can't remember the specifics of why. I will be rewatching those episodes as we get ready to watch that show in August, so I can sort of refamiliarize myself with the oeuvre of The Ninth Jedi. But I do remember liking the first volume more than the second installment, or the first installment more than the second installment. But the trailer is out for the new show, and depending on how you feel about Visions overall, it maybe this is not your cup of tea, but maybe it is. There's a lot of people out there. Anime is huge. I know there's been a lot of big anime conventions recently, including one at which they played the first episode of the show to positive reviews, I do believe, and positive feedback for those who saw it. So I definitely am intrigued, because Visions is one of the fun things about Visions is that it plays with the mythology of Star Wars and gives us something fun and new and different. So I am waiting to see how the Ninth Jedi series continues to sort of reinvent and reshape the mythology of Star Wars, and the Jedi in particular. The Jedi and the Sith, they are a primary focus of the show. And I can't wait to see what they do with it. I am excited, I am intrigued, and yes, I would encourage all of us to maybe revisit those Ninth Jedi installments that have come before in Volumes 1 and Volume 3 of Star Wars Visions as we prep for this new animated show. And again, go out there, check out that trailer, watch it on the YouTubes. It's there. I think it looks pretty darn exciting. Looks like there's a lot of good action, a lot of good animation. And again, I think it could be a lot of fun. So we'll wait and see how that turns out. But go check out the trailer. I dug it. There's like lots of cool little moments in it. And again, hints at big twists and turns in the mythology. So check it out and see how you feel about it. Again, I don't want to go into like a frame by frame sort of recap of said trailer, but I felt very positive about it, and hopefully you do as well. In the Star Wars printed media front, we had the third of the 5 Rogue One 10th anniversary comics come out. This one featuring the only Saw Gerrera. It was written by Mark Bernardin, and I would have to say that so far it's probably my favorite of the Rogue One anniversary comics so far. the Cassian one I think is really good to start things off. I wasn't enamored with the Jin book, mostly because it just felt like they were trying. It was too big of a story to tell in like 20-ish pages of comic, and that's the problem with a lot of these one shots. Unless they're oversized one shots, it's somewhat of a rushed story. Saw Gerrera's book is the first one that doesn't really feel rushed. I wouldn't say it gives us any sort of great insights into Saw Gerrera that we don't already have, but it just sort of further cements our feelings on Saw Gerrera and sort of his relentlessness in pursuit of victory over the Empire, and the lengths with which he will go to, and how he engages success against the Empire. A good book. And if I can give you one little spoilery Easter egg thing, it's not a big deal, but it made me happy that at one point in the book we end up on Taurus. Yes, indeed, Taurus. It made me very, very happy. It made this old man very happy to have a little bit of the book set on Taurus. All right. I think that's it for the things we're going to talk about. Again, go check out that Saw Gerrera comic. I did think it was really, really good. Check out that Ninth Jedi trailer and get ready for the animated series. We're going to be talking about it here on the podcast. But in the meantime, there's another animated show that we are focused on from the year 1985. That's right, we're vintage right now, and we are talking about Star Wars Droids. Let's go ahead and start giving you the particulars about this episode of Star Wars Droids. Because as we do, we give credit where credit's due. All right, this is Star Wars Droids, Season 1, Episode 3, original air date, September 21st, 1985, The Trigon Unleashed. Is it, though? Directed by Richard Beban and Peter Sauter, who's been involved in all of this thus far. Our cast for this week, of course, Anthony Daniels, Long John Baldry, Donnie Burns, Leslie Donaldson, Maurice Godin, Graham Haley, Dan Hennessy, Michael Kirby, Ken Pogue, Andrew Sabiston, and Toby Tarnow. The plot for this episode: Thal and R2-D2 set off to destroy the Trigon 1, while C-3PO and Kia are attacked by the Fromm gang. Oh, the Fromm gang. The Fromm gang. The Fromm gang. Let's get into it. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So, picking up where we left off in last week's episode, our heroes have captured the Trigon 1. They've taken away from the Fromm gang. And, Kia wants to use it for her rebels, who I don't think are the rebels that we're thinking of, but maybe I'm very mistaken about this. It feels like they're using that word to give us a connection to the movies, but there's been no talk of the Empire. There's been no vision of the Empire, no visuals of the Empire. So I could be wrong. I haven't seen this show in 40 years. So I don't know exactly if the Empire shows up or not. I can't recall. But it feels like it's just a word that they're using so that to get us excited as small children, to be like, rebels, yeah, we know that from the movies. So, yeah, let's check it out. But it feels like more of an organized sort of resistance against these gangs, which, again, by and large, I don't get the impression that the two planets that we spend the most time on, Ingo and Anu, are sort of controlled by these like ruggish, thuggish street gangs. It doesn't feel that way, but I could be mistaken. So I don't know. I mean, and so far the only gang we've met is the Fromm gang, and they seem grossly incompetent. So I don't know exactly what we're rebelling against necessarily at this point, but again, I think it's more of a word to draw a connection to the movies outside of R2 and C-3PO at the very, very least. So, our heroes have taken the Trigon, and instead of crashing it into a sun or something and just getting rid of it. They have hidden it. And of course, that means Tig Fromm and his father, Cease Fromm, and of course, Big Vlix. They are still after our heroes in order to find the Trigon because they want it back. Very, very simple stuff. I knew going back and watching the show would be a test of my patience. And I say that as kindly as I can because I know that this is going to be dated. It's not going to be, deep cuts. It's for children. It's an animated show from 1985 for Saturday morning cartoons. But let's be perfectly honest. The Fromm gang is not that interesting. I wish we had a little bit more from them of like what it is they're kind of known for. They're sort of shenanigans, if you will. They're the creation of this Trigon weapon to eliminate other gangs is not very deep. Again, we haven't seen any of these other gangs. We aren't aware of what sort of conflict they may be involved in with these other gangs. So the motivation to create a weapon to eliminate the other gangs it's a little thin. It's a little light. But, hey, that's fine. It's a Saturday morning cartoon for kids. This is me picking nits and me being, again, a little impatient. But that's fine. I understand that is a me problem. So yes, it's going to be simplistic because that's just the nature of this beast. And that's okay. But yeah, I wish the Fromms were a little bit more interesting at this point. We spent 3 episodes with them as our main antagonists, and we still don't really know much about them. Once again, our heroes all get captured. This episode's a lot of back and forth across the 2 planets, the Ingo and Anu. Obviously, the big Fromm base is part of it. There's a smaller ship that the Fromm gang has in this episode. It looks like a Tidarian-class shuttle, but it's not. I'm sorry, a Lambda-class shuttle. This shuttle, Tidarian, is the one I'm thinking of, but it's a Lambda-class. Something similar to what we saw in Return of the Jedi. And that seems to be where we draw a lot of our influence for this animated show from. Again, a lot of A-Wings in this cartoon. So, as stated before, the Fromm gang, after our heroes, Thal and R2 have hidden the Trigon. Jord and Kia's mother, Dima, have been taken prisoner by the Fromm gang. They're on Ingo, I believe, at the base. Meanwhile, they're in a Thal and R2 and Kia are in a garage on Anu. When Tig and Vlix capture them and they start making threats, they want the location of the Trigon. But Thal is gonna bluff, and Thal has sort of stepped up to be like our main hero here. He's the man with the plan. Him and R2 are kind of taking over as it's like sort of leadership roles in the group. And Thal wants to sit down with Cease Fromm himself. He'll only cut a deal and reveal the location of the Trigon with Cease Fromm. So that's what happens. We go from Anu back to Ingo. Again, we go back and forth a lot in this episode for this meeting with Cease. And eventually a deal is struck. They give the location. And they give the location, and then they just, all of a sudden, the Fromm gang just has the Trigon again, and they're transporting it back to the Fromm gang base with Vlix in the Lambda-class shuttle that's flying behind him. This episode, I had a lot of issues with sort of like the scale and the scope of the Trigon. It felt very small. I feel like it was much more massive in the first episode, but regardless, R2 and Thal have created a plan, right? Like, yeah, the bad guys have the Trigon back, but guess what? R2 and Thal have programmed it to crash right into the Fromm base. So that means our heroes have to spring their own escape because they are now all prisoners at the Fromm gang base, which I believe is on Anu. I think I got it mixed up. They had hidden the ship. I'm sorry, they had hidden the Trigon on Ingo. So Fromm and Vlix went from Anu to Ingo to get it. Now they're flying back to Anu where the Fromm gang base is. So Thal and R2 have programmed to crash into the base. Our heroes, who are prisoners in the base, now have to escape. There is a sort of goblin-y, leprechaun-y looking guard. R2 and C-3PO mention jewels. They come up with a story about hidden jewels that intrigue this goblin guard. So he comes in demanding to know the location of these jewels. And that's when R2 unleashes a barrage of what I can only describe as hot nacho cheese onto this goblin-y guy. And it renders him inert. And that allows them all to begin their escape. It's funny how quickly things resolve themselves. Our heroes, yeah, I guess they're in danger to a sense, but I mean, they're prisoners of a gang that's like grossly incompetent. Shenanigans ensue in the escape, R2 and C-3PO. The sort of recurring bit in this episode, much like in last episode where it was C-3PO bending over and getting stuck in that bent over position throughout the episode. This one, due to a prolonged period in zero gravity, now C-3PO's hands are in an up position until all of a sudden they will violently slam down and cause some sort of action and usually be a good distraction for our heroes to spring into action or make an escape or do other good deeds to survive the day. This comes in handy throughout the episode. And eventually, yes, our heroes do get away. The Trigon smashes into the Fromm base, blowing it all up, presumably bringing it into the Fromm gang. And R2 and C-3PO. C-3PO in particular is assured that he is a vital member of the team, despite the fact that it's always Thal and R2 coming up with the plans. They wouldn't come together if it wasn't for C-3PO. He is the B.A. Baracus of this group. And that is where we end this episode. I did fast forward it a little bit, but there's definitely a formula in play in these first couple of episodes that tends to repeat itself throughout the series. Again, we haven't seen that lightsaber since the first episode. I don't think we saw the White Witch in this episode either. And seemingly we have come to the conclusion of everything with the Fromm gang, though I suspect maybe not. But what do I know? We'll wait and see what happens on next week's episode. But to tease you for next week's episode, next week on Star Wars Droids, it is the return of one Boba J. Fett. And I cannot wait to see how that goes. Because, listen, we'll spend some time talking about Boba next week in a more grandiose sense, since that'll be like his sort of like fourth canonical appearance. Well, I guess canonical is debatable at this point. I guess this is all considered legends, but still, at this time, at this point in 1985, his fourth canonical appearance. We had the holiday special, we had Empire, we had Jedi, and now we're gonna have this episode of Droids. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into the again, I'm a fan of the Fett, so we'll talk about that big time next week. As far as this episode goes, I think it's 6 buckets. And, it's solid, but we're seeing a bit of a formula here. And again, if I were to pick some nits, it's that the show is a bit formulaic. But again, it's 1985. That makes sense. Some of the animation in this episode's not great. There is a bit where Tig and Vlix are holding everyone prisoner in the garage, and Tig has this sort of like ray gun sphere ball thingy, and at one point he shoots Vlix in the chair that Vlix is on, and it doesn't look great. Again, it's vintage Star Wars, and it's fun in a sense, but don't go deep on it. Don't go too deep. All right, we talked about The Ninth Jedi, so get ready for that. That's coming in August. We'll be talking about that. We'll be watching that show and talking about it here on the podcast. The 3rd issue of the Rogue One 10th Anniversary Comics is out. Check that out. I think that's the best one so far, featuring Saw Gerrera. The next one up is the Chirrut and Baz issue, followed by the Darth Vader issue that will be out in September. All right, Bucketheads, go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, tolerant, patient, and awesome. And tell your friends to check out this droid show if they're looking for something amusing, something, especially if they're younger and they miss the 80s. I don't know what they'll think of this. I think you should show that to them just so you can gauge their reaction and then tell me, like, what do your kids think of this? But they probably think it's trash. I'm not gonna lie. I've been noticing that amongst the youngsters these days, they don't have a lot of patience for the old things. But we'll talk about that another time. All right, Bucketheads. We will be back next week for the 4th episode of Star Wars Droids in our vintage rewatch series. And if any Star Wars news breaks in the meantime, you know we'll be here to talk about it. So remember, this podcast, it only ends one way, friends. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.